and hit me right at the goal line, but I fell over the goal line and went down inside the goal line. So I got my touchdown. And then shortly after that, her mother had a party for the football team.
Wasn't that nice?
I think
my mother, yeah.
I think there were some ulterior motives working.
That's pretty
My
neat.
mother never had a party for the football team.
No, I didn't.
And so we kind of got into a little bit that
He
night.
he didn't come because he lived out in the country and didn't have any way to get down there.
Well, one of our
In the town.
came
That's
up
funny.
and got me and brought me from Marshall, came up and got me and took me down to the party. And then I stayed all night at his house. Then he brought me back the next day.
That was nice.
But anyway, shortly after that, we kind of got together, didn't
But
we?
the first time we even talked was up at David's at the little place.
Yeah, the place
That was
where
the
they
first
had
time.
a dance floor and a jukebox in the back. And
They had
The little drugstore.
Wow.
it was a eating place for kids,
Nice.
for high school kids.
for high school,
Wow.
and
That
a
was the
hangout
hangout.
for high school kids.
So then
And
we
they
got
had,
together and we started going steady.
Yeah,
That was in 39.
40.
And I graduated in 40 and finished my senior year. She finished her junior year.
Mm-hmm.
And then I went away to college up in Eastern Illinois, and we came apart.
Well, and
Well, she came up
I came with your folks
with
one
my
time.
folks to a football game up there to see. We were playing at home, and they came up to see us play.
And my
I-
parents took me up in the country to stay all night and go with his parents up for the football game.
That was nice.
That is
And
neat.
I was telling him about that, going up to his house, and I said, I even slept with, and this woman choked, this one lady. I slept with his mother. But she choked when I said, I even slept with, and boy, I thought she was going to choke
She wasn't
to death.
sure what you're talking about, huh?
It was
He wasn't even in the house.
In 1941, we came apart.
Yeah.
And
Well,
then
he wrote me a letter.
I
a
went
Dear
off-
Patty letter.
Hmm?
A Dear Patty letter.
Dear Patty letter.
But anyway, then I went
Not going to
off,
see me anymore. Broke my
went off
heart.
to the war.
You broke her heart.
And
Because you were going off to the war.
yeah,
The next summer, after he wrote me that letter, he called me up and wanted to date, and I said no. I said, I'm not going to go through that again.
Because you were heartbroken.
And so he called up one of his buddies that I knew and that was dating a girl that I knew. He said, why don't you call her and see if she'll double date with, if we could double date with him and or with his girlfriend. And I said, well, maybe. So I did go out. When I got in the car, I'll always remember. I said, now you sit over in that corner, and I'll sit over in this corner, and don't you touch me.
she was a real snot.
And so he didn't call me anymore.
And 54 years later, I took my two female cousins, out to
We had alumni weekend.
the red what?
What?
What was the name? What's the name of that park? The red
Oh,
Red Hill.
Red Hill State Park.
Out east of west of
I
Lawrenceville.
went there with you.
But they have a big restaurant.
We even ate there, I think.
Yeah.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
And that's in Lawrenceville.
Mm-hmm.
You went there?
Yeah, I went there with Meemaw. Meemaw lived there for a while by herself.
Yeah, when you
Oh,
came to
okay.
visit me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And we
Before they got married. She
I was
right out of the
talking-
house.
we ran into each other
I was standing.
out at that restaurant.
I was standing and talking to one one of the football players from his team, and the reason I
Well,
knew
she was
this
still
guy,
living in Pennsylvania then. She was just visiting that week.
but this guy, his relatives were from West Virginia, and so were my grandparents were from West Virginia. So the two families always, they kept in touch with each other, went to church together and all this stuff. Well, I was standing, his name was Pearly Wells. Pearly for a boy. But I was talking to Pearly, and he said, "You know who that is standing over there?" And I looked at him and I says, "Russell?" He says, "Yes, that's Russell." And I said, "I'm going to go over and talk, I'm going to say hi to him." And he didn't want, he says, "Oh, don't do it right until I can see what you're doing."
He wanted to watch you, huh?
He wanted to watch. So,
So he went over to Russell then and said, "Do you know who that is over there?"
Yeah.
And you said, "Did you know who it was?"
yeah, who do I know who that is over there? No, it's Russell.
But then he went over to Russell and said, "Russell, see that lady over there? Do you know who that is?"
Well, I went
I
over,
think so.
I walked up to him, and you know what he did? Grabbed me and kissed me.
The first thing.
First thing.
Well, you gotta start somewhere.
Didn't waste any time, did
And
you?
you were how old? How old were you?
Old enough.
And I didn't ask him where he lived, his address or anything.
How old were you?
That was 95.
Yeah, that was after your dad passed away. Anyway,
That was 95,
So you would have been 70.
22. I was 73 and she was 72 then.
Okay.
And you hadn't seen each other in...
54 years.
Wow.
See why he didn't waste any time?
I don't blame you.
But I didn't ask him where he lived, and he didn't ask me where I lived when we met that day out at
And
Red
you
Hill
were still
State
living in
Park.
Pennsylvania then.
So I called my aunt in Lawrenceville, and I said, "Call this lady who was the chairman of his class
She was doing her
of
detective
the
work.
reunion thing,"
Super
and
sleuth.
said, ask her for his address. And she says, "Isn't that funny? He just called about 5 minutes ago and wanted to know if I knew her address."
That's awesome.
She said, "But I didn't know, so I told her to call my aunt." And
Isn't that funny?
so I wrote him a letter,
And she wrote
and I didn't have my name on it, just my
on the
address.
envelope, just the address.
Yeah,
Well, I saw
Camp
the
Hill,
letter.
Pennsylvania.
I
and
saw,
Wow.
He said, "Now who in the world do I know in Camp Hill, Pennsylvania?" And he opened it up, and my cousin had taken a picture of us that day when we met the first time at the restaurant, and sent me a couple copies of it and said, "Send one to Russell." So I put one of those pictures in it.
That's neat.
So he knew who it was then.
and that next month, each of our telephone bills,
$200 a month.
but $200 and $300 each.